Welcome to episode 14 of Motivating Mondays, a weekly podcast and YouTube series dedicated to help Canadian job developers and other employer engagement professionals develop the tools, resources, expertise, and network to excel in achieving sustainable employment outcomes for their clients or students. My name is Christian St. Cyr, National Director of the Canadian Job Development Network, and today we're talking about how to pitch your clients in a manner that connects with the employer and sells your clients' strengths. Now, this is week 2 of our 6-week series on developing the very best practices in employer engagement. Throughout July, we'll be talking about strategies for connecting with employers, best representing clients and students, utilizing discovery to learn more about local computer employers, the value of leadership in the business community, turning a no today into a yes tomorrow, and how the job development community can work together to increase employer engagement across the board. I hope you join us each week as we provide a comprehensive introduction into the best practices in job development for anyone who is new to the sector, but also as valuable reminders for seasoned job development professionals. Now, in this second week, we talk about the sales and advocacy skills that can have a transformative effect on job development and how to make the very best arguments on your client's behalf while building lasting relationships with local employers. So, let me ask you a question. What do you do? If you met someone at a party or outside of the career development sector and you told them that you're a job developer or a co-op coordinator or an employer engagement specialist, and they replied, "Oh, that's interesting. What do you do?" How would you reply to them? I'm going to sincerely ask you to take a moment to think about this. In your brain, do you say something like, "I work with people who have disabilities and I help them find work placements"? Now, if you don't work exclusively with this population, would you substitute the word disabilities with immigrants or youth or women or mature workers or Indigenous Canadians or maybe survivors of violence? You may not work in any of these with any of these particular populations, but would you say something like, "I work with people with employment challenges and helping them find sustainable employment"? Now, if you've attended these things on a Monday on a regular basis, you know that I've said many times before that you never want to market your clients based on their challenges, and you should never expect an employer to hire a client because it's the right thing to do. Nevertheless, not only do we not want to say this to an employer, we need to get out of the habit of thinking this way. Now, your funding may exist because a certain population needs support in finding work. And maybe your organization itself exists to support certain individuals or a population of individuals. But your job is to advocate for your clients. We can't do this to the exclusion of employer relationships because that's going to hurt the prospects of future clients that you're working with. But beyond this, you need to see your clients as extremely capable with, as Liam Neeson would say himself, a unique set of skills, and that you are there to make the most of them. The very fact that you are advocating for your clients is going to make it clear to an employer that they have some challenges in achieving employment on their own or the challenges that they face. But we can't appeal to an employer's sense of social responsibility. Certainly, your client needs a new employment opportunity, and we would like to think that employers do things because they are the right thing to do. But both are actually poor motivators. An employer is motivated based on one mindset alone: the future success, stability, and longevity of their organization. They are hiring to fill a role, and that role might be one that simply needs to be staffed, but likely the employer is looking at other aspects as well. They're looking for someone who's reliable, hardworking, who doesn't complain, who shows up on time, who knows how to use PowerPoint, who smiles whenever they greet a new customer, and maybe it's someone who just cleans their workstation whenever there's downtime. Now, there might be 100 tick boxes that every employer is looking to fill, and every employer is looking at a different group of these boxes. I'm going to say that it's rare that an employer's primary concern is hiring someone with a disability, or someone who's Indigenous, or someone who's younger or mature, or someone who's new to the country. It's not to say that an employer won't hire individuals who fall into many of these categories. It's really just not their primary concern. For this reason, you want to say things like, "I have an amazing young worker. You never want to say, pardon me, things like, I have an amazing younger worker, or I've been working with this person who's got some physical challenges. And it's easy to fall into the habit of saying something like, we have a terrific group of new Canadians that we're working with. All of these statements sound positive, but inevitably you're saying something like, I have this person who's never worked before, but, or my client grew up in the Powhatan First Nation, but just moved here. Or we ended up, in each case, you're stating a challenge which we chose to bring up, and saying it isn't really a challenge. Here I have a client, they have a challenge, but it isn't really a challenge. And that's really not how we want to start the conversation. Now, I realize why it's our tendency to do this. I would do it if I were out there doing job development. When we get to meet our clients and we hear their story, we're moved by it. And we want employers to be similarly moved by it. More likely, if this employer hires your client and learns more about them, develops a personal connection, and they will also be moved by their story. But it's just a distraction at the point where you're pitching the client. In my experience, an employer wants to hire an amazing employee. And if they happen to have a disability, or they're new to the country, or this is their first job in 20 years, all the better. I don't think an employer is ever going to say, I don't want to hire these populations. This is why we do discovery. Once you learn about the challenges an employer faces, how many of those tick boxes your client meets, we can then speak to those strengths. So instead of saying, I have a client who's brand new to the country, I can say instead, I have a client who speaks 3 different languages, and I've noticed that a lot of people who use your business speak those languages. You might even say something that has nothing to do with your client being an immigrant, like, I have a client who just completed their first aid, they're completely proficient in Microsoft Office, and they've never missed a day of work in 10 years. Now, there's a whole lot of tick boxes that we can speak to. When you are reaching out to employers for the first time, you won't likely have a rich, transformational conversation. Instead, it's like you're trying to overcome their resistance to even talking with you in the first place. And that this is what job salespeople call prospecting. Now, last week we spoke about prospecting, and I mentioned Jeb Blunt's brilliant book, Fanatical Prospecting. And if you want to become better at prospecting local employers to hire your clients, there are tons of applicable insights. And if you didn't see last week's presentation, I encourage you to go back on YouTube and take a look at it. Or go to jobdevelopment.org and click on the Job Development Pulse, and you can actually just see our write-up on it. In job development, these objectives, like the objective of that first prospecting discussion, is going to be one of 4 things. You're there to set an appointment. You just want to find a time to meet with them or speak with them on the phone to discuss how your services might be of assistance to them. And that conversation is going to be a lot of you trying to understand their needs. Your second goal in that first, conversation is going to be to gather information. This is the first phase of discovery. You want to learn more about the employer, the roles that they recruit for, or the challenges that they face. A third goal for that initial prospecting conversation could be to close the sale. You call up an employer, you say, hey, I saw you just posted an ad today. I have a number of clients who I think would be perfect for it. That's your third objective in that first conversation. But the fourth objective in that first conversation with employers is to build familiarity. Here's our opportunity to let the employer know that you are a resource in the community, that they can turn to you whenever they're recruiting. So let's talk about traditional sales. Let's talk specifically about ABC: attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. In the 1992 movie Glengarry Glen Ross, Alec Baldwin plays Blake, a high-performing salesperson whose job is to motivate a group of disaffected realtors on how to excel in sales. Now, in the movie, the realtors are in a sales contest, and this is how Blake approaches it.
Because we're adding a little something to this month's sales contest. As you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Second prize is a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired.
Now, it's certainly not a strong endorsement of pursuing a career in sales. Blake also tells the realtors about the ABCs of sales.
A, B, C. A, always be B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
It's this attitude that makes us so resistant to salespeople in the first place. This expectation that we don't want customers to express concerns or reluctance, we just need them to sign on the bottom line. That is not how we want to pitch clients in career development. Now, author Daniel Pink wrote a great book called To Sell is Human, where he introduces the new ABCs of sales. According to Pink, this new approach includes A, attunement, the capacity to take another person's perspective, to understand their interest and to see the world from their point of view. We do this all the time for clients and students. We want to do this for employers. The B in ABC is buoyancy, the capacity to stay afloat on what one salesperson calls an ocean of rejection. And then there's C in the ABCs, clarity, the capacity to make sense of murky situations, to curate information rather than merely access it, and to move from solving existing problems to finding hidden ones. In these ABCs, we have a rich formula of how to be a successful job developer. In his book, Pink acknowledges that while historically salespeople were a specific category of workers, today persuasion is trying to get others to buy into our ideas is one of the daily tasks in about 9 out of 10 workers. This is why we can't just focus on placement. If we place a client who's not going to work out, or if we coerce an employer through guilt or misleading claims, not only are we setting up our client or student for failure, we're damaging our reputation not just with this employer, but other employers as well. When you are pitching clients, whether in a cold call or at a networking event or in an introductory email, you want to remember 2 things. What does this employer want or need? And how can my client or student excel in meeting these expectations? Adopting this mindset in every client and employer communication will transform your success in making placements and in achieving long-term employment outcomes. So this summer, when you're at a barbecue or visiting neighbors or at a baseball game and someone asks you, hey, what do you do for work? You could reply, I'm a job developer. I help amazing people find jobs. Before we wrap up, I just want to say if you haven't seen it yet, we've officially launched registration for the 2025 National Networking Day for Job Developers, and it's going to be taking place on September 19th. And we'd love for you to join us in your community to connect with other job developers and other employer engagement professionals to discuss ways we can work together and create exponentially more employment and placement opportunities. A rising tide rises all boats. We've already selected 16 communities. We've already arranged 16 communities, and we're adding more. If you don't have one in your community, maybe your organization would be interested in hosting one. There is no direct cost for hosting a session. Just go to jobdevelopment.org and click on the NND tab or scan this QR code. Thank you so much for joining us. Please click on the like or subscribe button in your platform. We'd also love it if you could rate or review the podcast. Now, we do these sessions live and for free every Monday morning with job developers from across Canada, and we'd love it if you could join us. Just go to jobdevelopment.org to learn more. If you have any questions, send us an email, info@jobdevelopment.org. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have an amazing week.